Hello there, I am FerrousPilot, and I like to interview game developers. That means people who make, finish, and release their games, not the folks who start and then give up halfway. That's why today I'm talking to someone who can get things done. He's Ashley Ross of Omnomcom Limited. That's a bit of a mouthful, but welcome to the show, Ashley.
Hello.
So you've made quite a few games.
Yeah, I've made probably 30 or so.
Which do you think are probably your best games?
Um, the best game I made personally was probably one called Chelonaphobia, which is a fear of turtles. It was this really like it was made. Most of the games I make are part of a competition, like make a game in 72 hours, make a game in
Mhm.
48 hours, make a game based on this theme. So I was given the theme of phobias and turtles. So I kind of made um, a game about fear of turtles and fear in general. And it was just this really short, sort of creepy game, nice lighting effects and stuff. So I'm quite proud of that. And I also, in November, released a game called Dot.Stop.Run,
I've played that
uh,
one. It's
and
quite fun.
that was really. I actually ended up going to a games expo in the south of England and releasing that at the game expo in front of loads of people. It was great.
Oh yeah, what is it like to go to a game expo?
It, as a normal person, so to speak, it's pretty overwhelming. You've got a lot of things to do,
Mhm.
and there's a lot of wandering around, a lot of on your feet. And as someone who's showing a game, it's stressful in a good way, but also very, very hectic. Um, when we were there, we released the game. There was three of us, and we released the game in the hotel room at about 1 a.m. before the actual expo started. And then we during the expo, it was just we had probably about 10 different devices with it on, and we were just watching people play it, asking for their input and seeing what bugs they came across. And then that evening we went home, and straight away just went back to the hotel straight away and fixed a load of bugs, added some features in, stayed up until 4 a.m. again, and then went the next day. Um, and loads of people saw all of this like stuff that we'd done just overnight, and they were quite happy with it.
Oh yeah. I can
Um,
imagine, like, it sounds really hectic.
yeah, I mean, it's not only is it hectic, it's standing on your feet from 8 a.m. till 6 p.m.
They don't give you
Uh,
seats.
so unless you've worked in retail before or something, it's pretty physically draining as well.
All right. And earlier you mentioned game making competitions, like, I guess, game jams and that sort of thing. Could you tell me
Yeah,
a little bit about those that you've taken part in?
when I first decided to go and make games, I was in fact, a while before that, I saw Notch in
Uh-huh.
Minecraft. He joined Ludum Dare and made a game called what was it called? Metagun. That was it.
Hmm.
Where you had a gun and it actually shot out enemies, which I thought was a really unique idea. Um, so about a year and a half later from that, I decided to go and spend a lot of time making games. Um, and so I about 2 weeks before that Ludum Dare started, I decided to look at the source code of Metagun and learn how games were made. I knew how to program before that. So I did that, joined Ludum Dare, made my first game, and I've taken part in every single one since, which was about 2 years ago now, just over 2 years.
Oh, so that's interesting. You got your start making games through these sort of game making competitions.
hmm I absolutely love them. I try and take part in any one I can. I did the indie speed run.
Uh-huh.
Done that twice, both years it's been on. The first one, I my game won best sound, but
Oh,
sadly
that's great.
I didn't do the sound design. But um, it's still nice to have your game win an award.
Of course.
Um,
And would you recommend like doing these sort of game making competitions to someone who's just starting out learning game development?
I think they're essential because, like you mentioned at the start, one of the hardest things in game making is to actually finish a game.
Mm-hmm.
When you're given a theme and 2 days, usually over the course of a weekend, you can't help but you're under such a tight deadline, and you're given something to work on. There's no time to creep a little bit of a feature of some kind in. There's no time to get stuck. If you get stuck, you scrap what you're doing and do something else. So they're the best thing to getting you to finish games. As a matter of fact, most games I've finished have been jam games. Most games I haven't have been just, oh, let's make a game.
So how do you decide when a game is done?
I usually have a clearly defined set of features. Once those features are finished, then it's done.
All right, could you give an example?
Okay, the best one is Dot, which was the prequel to Dot.Stop.Run.
Mm-hmm.
That was made in a game jam in 72 hours. And that is an auto runner. So you're constantly running to the right. You have a time stop mechanic, so you can stop all of the objects. And that is all there is to it. So it was quite simple. Make those two mechanics, do all of the drawing code and level generation code, add in the pause button, and then design. I think it was 4 levels. That's all I could do in that time. And once those 4 levels were done, it was releasable.
So have you made any sort of longer style of games, or are you focusing right now on making smaller games and getting them done?
Dot.Stop.Run is the game I've spent the most amount of time on.
Uh-huh.
That's still in development. There's a big update coming out, and an even bigger one in the works. That I've worked on part-time for probably 5 months now, 6 months. So there's been a good 200 or 300 hours put into that. I've had a few other longer term projects that are on the back burner, so to speak. Again, it's mostly due to time constraints at the moment rather than stopping because I've lost motivation or whatever. I have worked on other games that are longer term but weren't mine, so I guess that counts as well.
So are you doing this as a full-time thing, or is it just a part-time and you have a separate job?
Sort of both. I'm a freelance developer, so on top of my own stuff, I do make Android, iOS, Windows Phone apps. And at the moment, I'm actually making a game as well. I can't tell you what it's for exactly, but it's to tie in with a movie that came out recently. So that's quite cool.
So is that how you got started? You were an app developer before, and then you sort of saw Notch's thing, and you thought, hey, I want to get into games development?
No, I started out about 12 or 13 years ago when I was just a kid. I used RPG Maker to make games, and then they released a version with Ruby scripting built in, so I started learning Ruby to edit that, and kept learning code of just all different kinds to do little things. And then I went to college, learned code there, didn't make it through college, and then spent probably 3 years looking for a job, and apparently there's absolutely no jobs where I live. So I thought, if I'm going to be spending all my time at home, I might as well do something useful. So that's when I started to learn code full time. I spent probably 60 or 70 hours a week learning to code in a more professional setting. And used making games as a sort of challenge to learning to code, because there's so many different things you come across there.
Mm-hmm. Well, what do you think? Sorry to interrupt you, but what do you think is the most challenging game in terms of just coding wise? that you learned the most from?
Um, there was a game I made called Tiny Catan,
Hmm.
and that has, in fact, I don't think that's the most complicated one. It's a tough question, this, if I'm honest. I'm trying to think through every game I've ever made and trying to pick the best one.
Well, what did you have the hardest time with at the time you were making it?
Again, like I can't think of what the hardest one for me to make was. Um, there was the one I was most frustrated with
Hmm.
is it's a really silly one actually. Have you ever heard of the Stanley Parable?
Yes.
Do you know the demo?
I haven't played the demo. I haven't played the game either, so.
In the demo, there's a section where they're leading you up to the actual demo. It's like the
Mhm.
demo is here's us showing you how we made the demo. Oh, and now
Yeah.
we will release the demo. And there's this big fanfare and doors open, and then it's just a button where you press it and it says 8. And they're like, oh no, this isn't the demo. This is just a game where you press a button and it says 8. And in the demo, you keep pressing it, and the narrator keeps sort of like chastising you for actually being interested in a stupid game. So I actually made an Android app for it. Where you press a button, it says 8, and there was I got one of my friends to do his own little narration for it. Again, chastising you for pressing this button and so on.
Mhm.
Um, and that was it's such a simple thing to think about, but there's these little things that you never think about as a user. So you can choose between classic mode and sarcasm mode. So there's a lot of people reviewed it saying, I don't want the sarcasm being said. I just want to press the button and hear 8. So I had to add a switch, but then I added achievements in it. So I didn't want it so that when you switched, you could lose out on the achievement of the sarcasm person. So I have to separately count the phrases, um, and then having to work on what happens when you reset the counter. How does the global counter work? Actually, the website I was hosting, the global counter on, got banned because it was getting like 100,000 hits a day or something ridiculous. And that was frustrating to have to think about all of these parts together that are fitting, rather than the way I usually work is an individual part and then this other individual part, and they just happen to link.
Mhm.
So it's a silly one, but yeah, that's definitely.
Hey, if it's the most frustrating one, then it is. I mean, it sounds very complicated to me.
Mhm.
So I just want to leave off with a simple question. Do you have any advice to people who are just starting out with game development?
Just keep making games. The more actual games you make, the better. Finish games, basically.
All right. Thanks for coming on the show, Ashley.
Thank you.
Right. Thanks everyone for watching. There will be a link to Ashley's games in the video description.